what just happened there. So we're in Australia and you clapped a bank. So someone's going to come through and arrest some people soon. Thanks for that. I've been asked along today to talk about, I guess, a few things. First of all is why it's okay to clap and applaud Bank Australia. But second of all, when BCCM called, they said, look, there's I guess the myth that perhaps co-ops struggle to access debt, to struggle to access finance and loans from banks. And I scratched my head and okay, is that the case? So I guess let's do a bit of interactive stuff. Put up your hand if you're representing a co-op or you're a member or owner. Show of hands. Okay, good representation. Now, anyone who either has the perception or who has had an experience struggling with a co-op and accessing a loan. And a few as well. Okay, all right. So we want to get into debunking maybe what some of those issues are and looking at my approach, but also then we'll unpack some of those later in the day. So, what's that? I always look at these things and maybe my brain doesn't work properly, but I always wonder which way's forward and which way's back. Anyway, apparently this is forward. So, first of all, about Bank Australia. So, we're a customer-owned bank. We come out of the cooperative space. All of our customers, about 150,000 of them, they are our owners. And so that ownership gives them a democratic right to vote. And I think, well, that's lovely. And when I joined the bank many years ago, I won't say how long ago because that'll give away a few too many secrets, that was kind of, it was wound up into, well, this is the way we operate, but it wasn't really at the heart of action on the ground. And about 5 or 6 years ago when we became Bank Australia, we decided we're going to change that. And we're going to make voting and an AGM something a little more purposeful. So at the moment we pick about, or our customer owners pick about 12 impacts that they want the bank to address. So that will vary from disability housing, community housing, social inclusion, financial inclusion, reconciliation, and the list goes on and on and on. And these owners are able to say to Bank Australia, right, these are the things we want you to work on. They're the things that we think are important and we want you to go about addressing them. So we give 4% of after-tax profits to these things just through benevolence. There's no loan programs here, it's just a giveaway. We try to go out and measure the social returns on some of those, but it's a good thing. So then we looked at, we don't want for those things to be taken cheaply. So we developed our, it's a lovely picture there, that's our conservation reserve. So the bank offsets all of its own carbon. So we've been carbon neutral since 2011. But also for every home we build, we reserve that footprint on the reserve, and that continues to grow. So at the moment it's about 1,000 hectares and growing. And we plant 7 trees every year for every car loan we write. So it offsets the carbon emissions from the cars we're effectively putting it on the road. So again, we want to have a real impact to the communities that we represent. And to, I guess, just to indicate that this isn't sort of trivial, this costs us about $1 million a year to run, to keep Greening Australia look after it for us and send school groups out and do all those sorts of good things, but it's a really expensive thing. So it's not a case of a bit of greenwash. We bought some land and it's a conservation reserve, but it's an expensive, important part of what we do. My job at Bank Australia, so I'm commercial lending manager, and I guess straight away we get pictures in our heads around, well, he's probably out there quaffing on a brandy and laughing in a cigar bar with someone. That sounds really good, actually. Maybe afterward we can do that. My job description is PPP, People, Planet and Prosperity. So everything I do addresses those 3 areas. So people, community housing, disability housing, general not-for-profits that bank with us, and lending to them and to grow that book. Planet, eco-housing, passive housing, various conservation initiatives we also bank, and those conservation groups, Environment Victoria, etc. And last but certainly not least is prosperity. So social enterprises. Robin, thank you for curtain raising that. Profit for purpose entities. So Bank Australia considers itself profit for purpose. We don't do anything with our profit at the end of the year except sink it back into cheaper fees, lower interest rates for loans and the like. Social services, shared equity for those experiencing financial exclusion, and the list goes on. So certainly in that prosperity group is where we begin to see some of these smaller co-ops, and is a nice segue through to exactly what we're here to talk about, which is co-ops and lending to them. So I'm here to confirm, and I'll stand at the lectern and bang my hand, there is no structural reason why a co-op can't borrow. Nothing at all. So if you've had an experience and you've gone into a bank and that bank has said to you, oh sorry, we don't lend to co-ops, that was the easy way out. That was the low-hanging fruit that the bank has decided to use, but there was something else going on there. It's not because you're a co-op. So whenever I have a disagreement, of which I have many because I've got 2 young kids, I like to put myself in their shoes. So if we put ourselves in bankers' shoes, we begin to discover what is it that we're really presenting when we run in with a business model. So as an example, now this wasn't a co-op, so I'm not looking at typology here, but just causality. There was a tyre shop. They ran a tyre shop of some sort, and they were from Gippsland. And they wanted a loan. They were an existing customer of Bank Australia. So the referral was made, and I called them up. Rang. It rang for a really long time, and eventually the guy picked up. Hello? Hello, is this Jim's Tyres? Yep. Okay. Is this Jim? Yep. So I began sort of digging and trying to tease out detail just to find out who am I actually talking to. And I thought to myself later, I really don't want to lend this guy any money. Don't tell Jim this, by the way. But he wasn't presenting anything that told me that this was going to be a successful enterprise. He can't answer the phone properly, and he wasn't at all personable. So the first thing, and we all have experiences with retail, we want a smile when you answer the phone. We want to introduce the name when you answer the phone. So I think he missed 2 really obvious things. And I think when we're talking about co-ops, the concept of a co-op isn't very conventional. Like we said, 2,000 co-ops and many more companies, trusts, partnerships, etc. So we begin to need to address how is it that we're presenting them. We're going to work through this later on, and again, these slides will be distributed, so there's no need to copy them down, but come back to these later on and we'll look at some of the things that we need to present. You know, the usuals around historic performance, but also if we're looking at a social enterprise, which is a startup, we need to start thinking about what are the mitigants I can present, because I'm presenting a lot of risk. This is all notional. This is, hopefully it goes well. What are the mitigants if it goes wrong? Is there a security, or is there cash at bank? What are our internal capabilities? I used to be a partner at KPMG, so I think I can run my tyre shop. Yep, that's a fair assumption. You know, this guy's fairly good. When we, at Bank Australia, and I encourage this for any bank, there's nothing wrong with the other banks, by the way. They're really smart people at these banks, and their business is lending. Engage early. Don't just roll in with a foot of paper and sort of give it to them. Go and talk to them and suggest this is what we want to do. Allow them to have input. 99.9% of the loans I've written in the last 10 years, which is about $500 million worth, I've had input in. They come to me, we work, we partner. I'm not a lender, I'm a partner in these projects. So that's really important as well. Again, there's key requirements for your submissions. I'm not going to talk through this. You'll go and look at this later if you want. That is me. Again, now we've established we're allowed to clap. I welcome a bit of applause.